Here we go.
Here we go. So I guess the best start is to give an introduction,
Hmm.
what we are talking about. Um, so the prime motivation is that we are introducing a new screen that is combining goals and projects.
Let me
And
see
on
if
the,
I can pull it up quickly just for
yeah, that would be
context.
great.
I think there's a. Is there an open pull request? I think that's kind of shows something.
Maybe, maybe.
Um, no, but I have downloaded a quick video recently that Adriana posted as part of one of the pull requests. So it's this one.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, so this is a new screen for like the hierarchy of golden projects. This is a work in progress. There are some filtering controls, but yeah, this is the screen. So we are working on this and coming from this kind of
Yeah.
background. Yeah.
So the background here is that currently every project has a status. I think on the screen it says outdated in most places, but usually it would be on track, off track, or some caution that something is going bad.
Yeah.
And then we naturally extended that to goals as well. We didn't fully think through that. So that is one part of the conversation of, okay, how to solve this, how to unblock this project.
Mhm.
The other is I was continuing some thinking about KPIs and updating KPIs. And a similar question popped up there as well. And the question was, okay, you can update the values to say this is now in a good or bad range, or some numbers. Uh, we also anticipated that it would be good to have a comment box where you can express what is actually the status, or what why are these numbers like this, some interpretation. But I think that there as well, it would really help us if we would have a status like green, yellow, red. Just because it gives if you have multiple KPIs, you can get an instant overview of, okay, what are the people in my company thinking or interpreting, how they are interpreting these numbers, and then emerge the bigger topic. Should we have these statuses on basically every kind of check-in? Maybe I'm extending it that every kind to too much. But so far, what I'm thinking are goals, projects, KPIs, and procedures that we are talking about.
Yeah. So we just to say, so we kind of, as far as I don't recall us discussing procedures ever. It's at like in depth. I think we just kind of here and there throw some ideas, but yeah, it's an undeveloped concept as of yet. For that, yeah, it's hard to say. I think there it's going to be maybe tricky to figure out what's the right thing in the context of like there could be a procedure that takes an hour, and there could be procedure that's almost like a mini project. Um, in which case, it's probably not even a procedure. Um, yeah, maybe not to go off topic, but yeah, it could be more maybe correct to say that the procedure is to initiate the project, and then you have a project. The procedure ends with you starting the project from a template, perhaps. As for KPIs, I think it absolutely makes sense. I think it's um, There is always when you look at um, any kind of business metric, you may not want to say it. It may not be like, or it may not be a big deal, but there is always a threshold of like what's kind of good and what's not so good, right? So I think as with kind of other things that we're doing with Operately, we do want to sometimes push for like if it's a tough question, it's better to address it than to ignore it. if it's if that's kind of not the case, then it's still beneficial to have have things obviously presented rather than to always require interpretation. So what I mean by that is if you would open some screen, some kind of dashboard which shows which visualizes something, you it's really much better to follow. You know, if you follow the principle, don't make me think, the timeless UX principle. It's why should I need to read through all the things on the screen to conclude are we good or not, or where is potentially an issue? If it can be pretty straightforward to define somehow some conditions maybe, or just flag something which is of one status or another. Um, and we're coming to that from you briefly touched on this. So um, as of now, if you we're introducing like a new homepage for Spaces, um, which will be like kind of like a dashboard, like a portal to different sections. One of which will be to go to the goals and projects that are associated with the space. And so one of the ideas that we had was, okay, instead of just list like rendering some text, like titles of stuff and so on, like why don't we use the opportunity to actually communicate like a summarized status of what is going on in the in the whole kind of space, which is typically a department at the company or a group of some kind. Um, since we already have a status in projects, very very natural to add it to goals as well. And so for KPIs, very much the same. I do think there's a difference in perhaps the mechanics of how it's being how it should be set, maybe for KPIs. Um, on one hand, for things like goals and projects, in many cases, you the champion who is kind of checking in, and they also have like the authority and kind of the bandwidth to like make the call, like is this good, or is it on track? Is it for be cautious, or is there an issue? But in case of KPIs, it's often like delegated kind of an activity, updating those. And as we kind of also briefly touched in the previous discussion, it sooner or later that we will have like a way to automatically kind of feed in the values into the system. So I think that yeah, basically updating values and observing and then potentially deciding um, a change of status. These are very different moments in time, so and they should probably be separated also. And that For KPIs, it's more a bit more machine numbers thing. I could see value in like defining conditions, like what values are green, what values would be kind of yellow and or okay or something, and which values would be definitely for flagging red, and then Operately could just automatically, set those. But yeah, now would it be useful to have still a way to override that? Probably. That's a question just popped in my mind.
So the actual reason why I wanted to talk live instead of just writing these things out is because a similar question pops up with goals. Like in theory, we could have, you know, lower bounds and upper bounds for goals. What is considered good, what is considered problematic. And Operately could, in theory, interpret those and automatically give you a status. I still feel that that's wrong because just going by my personal experience, I enter some numbers, but those numbers could match my desired state, and which could be in some range, but also that there could be some unknown blocker that I'm very aware of. That okay, we got some good numbers, but the next step would be probably impossible because of some hidden thing. And they want to express that with, okay, this is red. This will not go further. Something needs to be done to unblock this.
Yeah, I think it's a different. The nature of these of basically numbers, like if you're comparing success conditions of a goal, or key results in how some other people call it, and the values of a KPI, yeah, it's different. I mean, the value of a KPI is always there, kind of whether you like it or not, and it's just a raw reflection of reality. Whereas with goals, you are literally, kind of changing the world in like micro scale, right? So you're pushing to change X to another number, and the dynamics are very often unpredictable, and yeah, it feels like it would be very brittle if we would attach to success conditions an additional kind of logic that we would kind of ask or recommend people to do. Like if it does not reach like some middle number in between by X date, then it's kind of it should be flagged as a cautious. Like, yeah, but it feels like a point like diminishing returns kind of effort.
Especially if you add into a consideration that rarely a goal progresses linearly.
Yes.
You do lots of work, and then there is a sigma function that just comes from completely red to completely green.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you can model it, but then you are adding probably unnecessary complexity to software. I would definitely hate to choose my calculation function for every success condition that I have. The other problem, so that let's say that we cover this problem of does it make sense? In a sense that if we have that select box, would it make sense to choose those values? The other concern that we should probably address is on projects, that is currently the only thing that you select and you can write something. Now on goals, it's you need to select that plus fill in 4 values plus a comment. So we are entering the territory of potentially too much data to be checked in um, once you do a goal check-in.
Yeah, there is, there is also, if we compare now, that's a good point, like project status and goal status, I think there's a different kind of difference um, compared to like goals versus KPI status. And I think the difference is in when you have a running project, like progress needs to be made like every day, like all the time, constantly, and a pause is not good. I mean, if we decide that we pause a project, of course, and but that changes the status. That puts the whole project on hold, and people do something, goes to do something else. Um, but what I have observed in practice with goals is that yes, for example, there's an open goal, um, but for which nothing would change for a significant amount of time, because it is set as a goal. Like, for example, we many months ago we set one of the goals for Operately, like to acquire, you know, users outside kind of Semaphore, which is the first company using it, which is the company where we come from. So. Um, but if you look at like what is, to get to that, to really accomplish that goal, we have many sub goals in between, many stepping stones until we reach that stage. And so if you would like report report on a monthly basis, like do a check-in on that goal, um, it's kind of neither color. It's just like it's fine. We're going towards it. Or you could say it's on track, but you know, I guess I'm um, talking about examples where you have a goal where success conditions have not changed, but you still consider it okay. But to me internally, like if I to say that it's on track and green, it's kind of like a bit of an overstatement, maybe. Um, Sometimes it's pending, it's like it's there, we need to see it. We are slowly working towards it, but it's not, it's more like a distant goalpost rather than something that like we are actively making happen.
This last thing actually puts in question lots of things now. Um, like the first thing that I hear is, okay, if we have a goal that, for example, is assumed for 6 months, we are executing sub goals, but for 6 months we probably won't move any success condition. Then the first question is, okay, is a monthly check-in even what is the purpose of a monthly check-in in that case?
Well, the purpose is to make you reflect, you know.
Well, if that is the purpose, then you can also say, you can also probably set a status, and the status should be a reflection of, are we actually doing any effort toward this goal, which I would interpret as on track. compared to a goal that we set, for example, a yearly goal. And in April, we haven't even touched it, like no sub goals, no projects, no any thought wasn't put into it, is a completely different beast than okay, we have several sub projects, things are going not directly to this parent goal, but sub goals are moving along.
Well, in at Semaphore, we there was a time when we had custom-made spreadsheets to track OKRs, and one of the status fields was pending. So a department would do like a monthly review of all its OKRs, and it was a perfectly valid kind of yeah. One of the options was to say we have not lost sight of it, but it's not yet the time. It's pending. You know, we'll do it. We'll start doing work associated with that in next month or something like that.
For example, I could easily imagine a goal that is set at the beginning of the year, that in September we want to attend some conference or ship something, or something that is time bound for September, but we know it already in the start of the year. And I guess for that goal, it would be a completely valid status to have a pending status until June, because we are not doing those stuff too much in advance.
It feels like the option of pending solves many things, if not all, because um, there comes a point where you um, where it needs to stop being pending, and you have to kind of be honest with yourself and say, you know, are you are you kind of falling behind, at least on schedule? Like there may be perfectly valid reasons, for example, why it's not being tackled yet, but maybe then acknowledge, you know, change the timeline, um, or if you cannot change the timeline, say that, you know, maybe it's entering the yellow kind of status of like let's be cautious about what what's gonna happen. On the other hand, if you just if some sub work has started and it's still a long way to go, and none of and you are doing a check-in and none of the success conditions have actually changed, again, it could be perfectly fine to say it's on track. You consider it on track at that moment, you know.
So the reason why I'm drilling into this is the pending thing, an appropriate thing, as I feel it's a powerful tool to both express that something is pending, but it's also a powerful tool to abuse. For example, you could mask non-activity or various problems with in the organization with pending. And it's not pending. It's, you know, we don't have the energy and resources to do it.
Yeah. Mm, yeah, I agree. But um,
One difference compared to, let's say, doing OKRs on paper and operately is probably the ease at which you can change the time frame.
what do you mean?
Like when you are on paper, you are usually setting goals that are either yearly or quarterly. And with quarterly goals, you assume that there is progress every month. Like rarely you assume that for 2 months we are going to do nothing, and then just magically pops up in the last month.
But it's still possible, it's possible that, for example, in a small kind of group that you plan quarterly and you plan something to that's not a maybe big goal, but it needs to be it'll be done, and it's just one. There's no need to start to work towards it throughout the whole quarter. Maybe in the second half of the quarter, the team will start.
My point is, in Operately, it's very easy to pick not just a quarter, but also a month.
Another time frame, yeah.
I'm not saying that it solves everything.
You mean like if you're kind of exploring the idea of not having a pending status at all, but like to solve the pending state by, let's say, making it obvious that if you want to make it pending, like change the timeline, time frame, so that it's not all like Q4, but like if it's not to be done throughout the whole Q4, but in December, say, set the time frame as December.
Yeah, that is probably my point. Or not my point, maybe an alternative idea to pending statuses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's um, it seems to cover. I mean, it seems to make sense. It's more like
One problem that it solves is, let's say, what irks me is that you have like 15 goals, and if you have 10 pending because that's only for the end of the year stuff, it's somehow a false representation of what is going on. And then maybe just picking a better time frames around your goals would solve it. On the flip side, I also don't want to forget about, let's say, human nature, that you set a yearly goal and I want it to be a yearly goal and let me set it to pending. Like don't force me to change how I express this goal to my team.
don't force me to make micro decisions that I have not previously been accustomed to.
Mm.
And I feel I can be successful in life without those micro decisions. That's probably the thought process.
Overall, my stance is that I'm okay with the pending status. Um, I, I feel that in some scenarios it could be abused, but then again, Operaly could, in theory, help you to point out that some things are pending for a very long time. And are you sure about keeping a
Yeah.
yearly goal 11 months pending?
Yeah, it can boil down to a very simple even formula, like whatever is the time frame. If you there is a time frame in which a goal is sort of active, to be worked on and completed, and if X% of that period is passed and the goal is still pending, it's definitely yeah, we can have a later on some kind of a rule for flagging those goals. while you were saying this, I started thinking about uh, well, not encouraging users, but it's an interesting tool, the combination of custom time frame and the pending state. So in effect, you could have you could define upfront future plans, future goals, future plans as future goals, um, with a time frame that starts in the future. Um, but I can definitely see how useful it is to see them on in your kind of hierarchy of work. Um, of course, with an option to hide such goals, and if you want to just focus on the active work, but yeah, let's say you're designing your kind of year of work, and you put in some goals that are definitely gonna be valid and active in later part of the year. And if you define such a goal, it would be nice if Operatorly automatically sets it to pending, and because keeping the big picture is, in broad sense, what we want to help people with Operatorly. So pending goal, which is outside the time frame, outside its time frame, shouldn't require status updates. But the pending goal inside the window of time in which it's supposed to be worked on definitely would ask you for one.
That's a good observation. If we zoom back to the beginning, I think we have our answer that yeah, we can go ahead and introduce statuses for goals.
Hmm.
It seems that marker, red, green, red, yellow, and green, uh, is also appropriate for KPIs and procedures as well. We have some doubts about how it should be set, either automatically or not automatically, or with the update or without the update. But if we zoom out completely, it seems that yes, the postulate that everything, quote unquote, should have such a status seems to be a good direction.
Yeah, so there is this conclusion that you described is, yeah, it reflects we don't need the same fidelity for each sort of resource. We need to clarify every detail for goals because it affects the current work, but KPIs are still we're just started wireframing, and procedures we haven't even started wireframing, so it's fine to leave some questions there open. Yeah, as I was saying this, I'm thinking for how the when the goal is closed, should the status somehow remain but transform itself into sort of finished state? So the
I can
group,
jump
yeah,
in maybe with something that I think already popped up with projects as well. We don't have this question answered for projects too.
was it a
And I
success or not? Yeah,
like for me, the first status that I wanted was done, cancelled, or failed, which is not similar to on track and off track. But I definitely had projects that we started after a week. Okay, this is not in our timeline. Makes no sense to do it. Let's cancel it before we end up doing lots of work with without any purpose.
yeah,
And the goals are very similar. When you're closing a goal, I think we should have a let's call it a final status for goals and projects, definitely.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, for KPIs, it's never ends, but for procedures, it's also it'll be also useful to have as indicator because it's like I wouldn't doing performing a procedure adequately as it was prescribed is not um yeah, I don't see it usually as something to like celebrate sort of like with, oh, this was a huge success, or but
There are the successes if you continuously do it for a year without any fail. Like
yeah, like a streak.
that's crazy work.
Streak, yeah, that's nice. But you do want to you do I would like to see an indication if, for example, it was not done well, perhaps, or of course it was if it was canceled. Mhm. So yeah, we see the pattern repeating, perhaps with a slight variation of flavor, kind of adapted to the type of subject, but more or less is the same.
If we are like completely honest, like the general idea are the signal lights, mostly like green, yellow, red
Traffic lights, yeah.
traffic lights. But the actual statuses on them and what they mean and the label might change depending on what you are dealing with.
Yeah. This is the universal language, if you just sort of zoom out as an individual contributor, you will see yourself, you will see your work as successful, well done. If kind of the stuff that you leave behind is like mostly colored in green, and if you are a manager or executive, you kind of want, um, if you're like a recipient of stuff that's color coded, color coding helps you focus your attention immediately on the things which do need your attention, and you are not overwhelmed with going through the whole kind of body, the whole system that you kind of manage or oversee from scratch every time, just to because you somehow lack signalization, or and so you lack, then you don't have confidence that you might not, that you will have everything covered, right? So
I'm thinking which signals are signaling the most to you. And I guess it's anything that is red probably needs attention. And the other thing is accumulation of, we don't have a color for it, but pending or paused work. It's rarely a problem if we pause one thing or one thing is pending. But when those things accumulate, then there is a systematic problem that you should look into.
yeah, well, if we are speaking a bit more generally, I would say delays, and just coincidentally, just before we started this call, um, I went into one of the projects where I'm the champion, and um, yeah, it involves an external party, so I had to change the timeline. Essentially, I delayed the completion of certain milestones in the whole project, extended the whole project, and this reminded me that how I was gonna start writing opening a new kind of feature request to add an extra flag or something to the event of, because currently if you look at the feed, like feed very nicely at the moment sort of communicates these changes. It says like Marco edited the timeline. He extended the duration of the project from 30 to 50 days. Milestone X has moved from A to B, milestone Y to from C to D. But I would really like the title of that to be like Marco delayed the project. Um, and it's not always necessarily a bad thing, but um, I would like to I would like us to have this information and be able to do stuff with that, um, somehow, maybe in aggregate later. We'll figure it out, but yeah, you've seen it also. Like there's a lot of time, especially engineering or like this um, kind of complex work where you would you would complete the project and you would say we did everything as we planned and it's fine, and some things could have been done better, but like, yeah, but we had like two major delays, you know and then it's like, we're happy that we got it done, but I always, um yeah, I wish there was more, it was more visible to everybody, including me, to that, when a delay happens and how often it happens, and just to be able to kind of reflect, because yeah, to be honest, I was very often part of projects that got delayed, and then we did not really kind of take the time to maybe assess like, why was that? Was it avoidable? Can we learn something and apply next time? So yeah.
I mean, one place where I definitely miss it is there is a closed project. I go back to that project. Let's see what we did in the last quarter, and then okay, I see the answers. What went well? What could have better? And what did we learn? But there is no information about, was it a successful project? We touched that already. The other is, were there some major delays? for example, in your case that you shared. Um, Probably some other information as well. Was it paused? What were the reasons for the pause? It's kind of hard to explore from that page these major events on the project.
It feels like almost low-hanging fruit at this point to me. We cannot do it immediately, but yeah, let's just keep it filed and we'll figure it out.
I think one similar note is I think Adriano asked me, he wanted to pause a project. He was focusing on some other project and then he went to a project and he just wanted to pause it. And the question is like, if I just pause it without any context, like you or Marco will not know what happened. So the approach that we have with goals already is that if you extend the time frame, you can leave a comment like, okay, this is extended because
Yeah.
this happened, or my focus is on something else. Some context what happened around that is probably very, very useful.
When we get to redesigning the timeline stuff like milestones and the overall project duration, yeah, we should not forget this so that the design allows you to make these adjustments and then but optionally leave a comment. Um, because if you're super diligent, for example, right now, and you want to leave a comment, you associate it with that change, like a delay, or there is no obvious. You cannot. I mean,
I mean,
you
for
could
a
go to one of the milestones, perhaps that was changed, maybe the most immediate one, and post a comment. That's one option, but yeah.
just coming from my practice, for any delay that I introduce or when I extend the project, I definitely feel the need to justify it or explain why this happened. The same goes for pausing a project. I definitely want to leave something.
Yeah.
Overall, I think we are finished with this topic.
Yeah.
Uh, let's say that the major points are, just to reiterate, feels appropriate to go forward with introducing status and goals. We should add an extra pending field there. Then we need to file these issues about uh, extending extending the time frame, changing the copy, adding a message around those things. And one thing that is so far just in my mind is that distinction between who is updating the KPIs and who is interpreting the status of the KPIs will be an interesting challenge to tackle.
Yeah, that's the KPI track. Yeah. Okay, good.